Welcome to Gregorian Chat.
Ho, 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 ho. Welcome to Gregorian Chat, episode 35.
Bienvenido.
A very special episode today.
Yes.
We have a cameo.
Yes.
It's not Cam, sorry, no.
No. Cameo is out there. We have Brendan Malone.
Brendan Malone,
Cameo
the infamous,
creams.
or perhaps famous, perhaps, I don't know. Not sure.
The infamous, yeah.
Yeah.
Brendan Malone, we've done a bit of kind of like cross media banter.
Yes.
And I told Dom to wear his Marvel shirt today,
I
but
forgot.
he was already at work, so.
It's classic.
But yeah, we've got
I
Brendan.
had my Batman shirt on earlier.
Did you?
It would have been just war of the podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, it's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about Marvel
For
or
a change.
DC.
We're here with Brendan Malone from Left Foot Media and Focus on the Family and the pro-life internship and anything else?
Rangiora.
Rangiora.
The capital, the real capital of New Zealand.
Is
Okay.
that
Okay.
Okay.
So that tells you a bit about Brendan already.
Yeah, if you didn't know anything. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about
Sexual healing.
undoing the mess that Hefner created.
Did Hefner laugh?
I am. Who are you?
The jokes are coming thick and fast.
Yes.
Look, boys, I'll do the dad jokes. Okay?
Okay.
I suppose you're the most qualified.
But-
4 kids you got now?
5.
5.
Wowzers.
It's hard
Yeah.
to keep track.
Yeah, it is actually. Oh, there's another one. Oh, I don't remember. It is quite funny. I still have moments where we're getting them into the car, and it's like, have we got everyone? Katie's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's 5.
Yeah.
And your kids are like, no, you forgot Katie. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's one on the roof.
That's
Soon you'll
5.
just be
It's like,
Brendan
but
alone.
1, 2, and there's 3 kids. Brendan alone.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah,
This is
right.
today we're drinking Auckland Breakfast, kindly donated by Molly Florence, who we said we'd do a shout out to.
Slasher.
So, thank you very much. But I think we're going to have lots to talk about today, so let's crack on in. So Hugh Hefner is dead. So the king is dead. Long live the king. Who is the new king, by the way? Is there-
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting
I
question.
think his son took over, didn't he?
Well, he's left. I guess he's left his legacy is such that it's just so widespread that there's
Yeah.
there's all these little dukes of.
Oh, right, yeah.
The Dukes of Porn. That's another.
The Dukes of Porn.
But
Anyway.
yeah, I also I was wondering this week. I was like, would Hugh Hefner's hell be no sex at all, or like way too much sex with people that he didn't find attractive?
Yeah,
It's another podcast perhaps, but we won't focus on that too much. But
yeah, I suppose there's been a lot of coverage in like Christian media. Like, how do we like react to this? Is it evil man dead, hooray, or is it kind of like well, as he's heard on Pints with Aquinas, that's quote again, Pints with Aquinas.
Sorry, Matt.
Aquinas. Sorry, Matt. Yeah.
He hasn't had any pints.
What's in this tea? Anyway, it's saying love the sinner, hate the sin, and so it's that's a good point to raise and to bear in mind when we're thinking about Hugh, as just a guy, as a human being.
Well, I think too. It's we must remember that even though Hugh Hefner has passed on, the empire and the legacy he left, it's not like that's the end of it.
No, it's
In
true.
fact,
No,
it's far worse than when he started now.
It's
So it's kind of weird in many ways just to fixate on him, as if somehow there's no victory in this.
No,
his
no.
death. It's a moment of sadness, obviously for his family, for the legacy he's left behind is very sad.
But now that he's dead, people are starting to talk about how he's had such a positive effect on liberating women from people who are coming up from that end. It's like, well, I personally didn't hear much of that while he was alive, in celebrating the death of whatever.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, we don't want to focus too much on this from that kind of I guess a victorious Christian perspective of Satan's right hand man is dead. And it's really important for us to be, I guess, as courteous as ever, especially online with our tweets and comments, and podcasts. So we're not focusing on necessarily who Hefner was, although that will come into this, but more about how can we actually undo what his life's work has done to our culture.
Because Christopher West does a lot of work on who Hugh Hefner is. That's going to be happening a lot.
Who Hefner?
Hefner. Anyway, because learning about where he comes from is a good key in understanding the culture, I find. And in his article on the core project, I can't speak at all today. His article on the core project is actually really really good, and it talks about Hugh's background a bit, how he's brought up in this like puritanical Methodist home, and how that had a big effect on him. And he actually admits it. There's a few quotes from him, sort of like he thinks how he wasn't loved enough as a child, brought him around like 180 degrees, going from like no like hugs and kisses at all to well,
much
Playboy.
too many.
Well, here's the thing though: is it really that much of a change at all, or is he simply expressing through his the nature of the way in which he handled and presented sexuality? Is in actual fact he expressing that same lack of genuine communal personal commitment? Because pornography is not a connection with a person.
That's true.
It's using another person. And it's keeping them at a distance. It's the very antithesis of healthy, authentic sexuality. So you could argue, in actual fact, what he's doing is he's not freeing himself. He's going even deeper down the rabbit hole of dysfunction and lack of love and everything else.
Like how you tied in rabbit hole there with the whole, bunnies.
Oh, that wasn't intentional.
No. But yeah, so looking at, I guess, because you do a lot of, speaking on the topic of porn, Brendan, and kind of, I was going to say, like, I've heard you say a couple of times, the problem with porn isn't that it shows too much, it's that it shows too little. It's not a human person.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really interesting looking at, at least understanding where he's come from in terms of this, what we might have grown up with in terms of sexuality, and what is the message that we hear about sexuality, and in particular, when we look at the good news. This is something we're discussing on the way here. The good news from Jesus. When we hear the good news about sexuality, it shouldn't be bad news to us.
Yeah, that's right.
And it kind of, but then thinking, okay, so what does I guess the Bible or the church tell us about sexuality that is positive? Like how can we combat this negative image of sexuality?
Yeah. Like, would you have any points and tips?
Well, I think that's a valid point. First of all, to start with, is that the idea often we think of is that just say no to porn, or just say no to a bad idea about sexuality. Well, no, it's really about a culture that you live and your lifestyle. And so it's not, in fact, interestingly, Jesus is he talks about this in the Gospels, about casting out devils. And if you leave the house clean, they come back and find it clean in an even greater number next time. And so there's something here about culture. It's not just a matter of saying no to one culture. You've actually got to replace it with an alternate and healthy and authentic life-giving culture. So it's not a matter of saying, no to porn, no to this deviant form of sexuality. What do I have around a culture of sexuality in my life that is authentic, that is life-giving, that helps me to flourish? And so that's the first point that you raise. It's so important. It's about saying yes to something. Rather than saying no to something.
And I guess we see that in this coming Sunday's scriptures. With Isaiah, and he's talking about, and God's talking about how he planted all this vine and it produced sour grapes. And then he asked the questions like, "What did I do wrong?" It's like it's not a case of what he did wrong, but the fact that the vine that he planted, or the people of Judah, they weren't living a life that was like authentic Judaism, the authentic people of God. They were following the law maybe, but not living a love. And I guess that's kind of what you're getting at as well. And like the whole surround yourself with good things of virtue, things that are pure and and good. It's like if you're like going to church on Sunday, then coming home and watching some TV program, or even like going on websites.
Game of Thrones.
I didn't want to say it. But
we all know what you were thinking. And he's right to think that.
But there's
send your complaints to.
Anyway, but if you're watching things on TV or you're going on websites that aren't necessarily bad, but they're they're not portraying a chaste image, or even one of dignity of
here's the point, right? A lot of people say, oh well, what's the big deal? Like, okay, good, I'm not looking at porn. I watch Game of Thrones, but you know, that's not porn, right? And those images don't bother me. And well, it's kind of it's weird because first of all, we know that images do have an impact. We have an entire science. It's called marketing, and it's dedicated to this very truth that with the power of just a 30-second advert with some images put together in the right way, I can shape your behaviour.
Yeah.
I can get you to buy a product. I can get you to vote for someone. I can get you to change your mind on an issue. This is why people pay millions of dollars for Super Bowl adverts, 30 seconds long, because we know we can. So imagine what's happening to your brain if you're constantly consuming a series of images that portray human sexuality in a certain way. And to me, I think if you're going to get to the heart of it, the question that's worth asking is, well, what really is at the heart of porn? What's wrong with it? The problem is not that it shows nudity. We've got no problem with nudity at all. For Christianity, sex is sacred, and you know, the human form is part of that imaging of God.
Just go to the Vatican,
and you know, well, that's right. I think it was JP2
right.
when they rededicated after they'd done some work on the Sistine Chapel. He rededicated it as the chapel of the theology of the human body, like he called it at the time. You know, so we're okay with nudity. There's a context to it though, like right. And if you take it and elevate it as sacred, you debase it. It becomes a problem. Right. So the problem with porn is not the nudity. The problem is the fact that it takes a human person and treats them as an object. And so what's really that lies at the heart of it is a culture of self-gratification. So how do you counter that? You have to have a culture of self-giving. That's so fundamental.
It's really interesting. When I read a short snip from Mere Christianity, which is an awesome book by C.S. Lewis. I try and read it like once a year. I've always been struck by this part where he's talking about the human appetite, the sexual appetite. And he says, take it another way. You can get a large audience together for a striptease act that is to watch a girl undress on a stage. Now, suppose you come to a country where you could fill a theatre by simply bringing a covered plate onto stage and then slowly lifting the cover so as to let everyone see just before the lights went out that it contained a mutton chop or a bit of bacon. Would you not think that in that country something had gone wrong with the appetite for food? And would not anyone who had grown up in a different world think that there was something equally queer, in the old sense of the word, about the state of
send your complaints to
about the state of the sex instinct among us, you know? And so I think what really struck me reading at this time was that he's not, like you said before, it's not just about saying no to. It's not just about saying no to porn and no to sex. That's not the right solution. It needs to be replaced with something positive, you know. And he goes on to say, wouldn't you conclude about that country that the people, your first assumption would be that the people were starving. They didn't have enough food, so they were, you know, kind of
salivating over a chop.
That's a great name for a song. But anyway,
or a band.
But that's not necessarily the case. You know, maybe they're having too much food or they're having the wrong food. And so thinking about that in relation to porn, it's like having nothing, I guess, repression and starvation of our sexual appetites is not actually necessarily the way that we were supposed to be either.
Well, here's the thing too. I think there's a couple of things. First of all, why is it that self-giving matters? Well, because we are made in the image of God. We all know that. We've heard that. But what we don't realise often is that that God is a Trinity. God's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit engaged in an eternal act of self-giving love. That's the image we're made in. So if our God is an eternal community of self-giving love, then we are also made for self-giving love. And interestingly, a lot of research now is starting to point this out. The people who find the most fulfillment in life are not the people who have everything and are living for self-gratification. It's the people who, you know, they talk about job fulfillment. I'm making a difference. I'm giving myself to something, you know. And time and time again, we see that, right? So we're made for this. And the same would be true in the area of our sexuality. And also on top of that, what pornography does is it really just reduces sexuality to a very narrow sort of biological, physical sort of some arousal and action. But in actual fact, human sexuality is much bigger than that. The sexual drive, when I talk to young men, I often talk about this, that don't just confine your sexual drive to the sexual act. You know, it should be something that's harnessed and that in all sorts of ways that are non-sexual is used to make the world a better place. You know, you use that masculine strength, that masculine drive to create things, to play sport, to compete, and you know, do all these good and healthy things that really at the heart of them, the sexual drive is still present as well. You know? And
I think it's about, you know, using what we've been given properly. And that's how we tackle the porn culture. Is like if we truly understood I think Padre Pio says it about the mass is like if you truly understood the value of the Mass, you wouldn't do anything to miss it. And it's like, if you truly understood the beauty and the purpose of the human body, about that self-givingness, which we see in marriage, don't we? There's all like that Trinitarian aspect. If we truly understood that, then it's not even that the idea of porn would repulse us, it just wouldn't come to mind.
Well, this is interesting. This is really what JP2 is getting at with his theology of the body, or what we call theology of the body. He never originally called it that. But this whole idea of he really is responding to a Kantian Kant, the philosopher.
Oh, right.
His sort of notion of sex and marriage was that sex was using another person, basically. It was using their body for your own gratification. But it was okay in marriage because you sort of gave each other license to do that. You agree. There's sort of a gentleman's agreement between a lady and a gentleman, But in actual fact, JP2 says, no, that's not right. And he says, human sexuality is sacred. It's the fulfillment. It's this crescendo of love. It is a physical participation in your original marriage vows every time.
Yes.
And you realise, wow, this is actually something really quite profound. So for the Catholic Church, sex is actually sacred. It's not just a thing you do. It's a profound act that is life-giving, that is flourishing, that helps you to, it's really quite a big thing.
And it's so difficult because the absolute opposite is what's being preached. Even within marriage, it's kind of like, the reason Christians get married so young is so they can have sex. It's like,
sex license,
It's like, that, whereas that's true, they do, you can, it's the right place to have sex. It's not the reason for it. It's a furthering of what's already happened in the church.
So but we were talking about this on the way here, and kind of this is probably a question I would pose to you. There will be a question at the end of this. So talking about then how do we combat the porno culture, because it's like, do we want to shame it? Is it a naming and shaming thing, or is there enough shame already in these acts that that's not the way to go? But then at the same time, we're saying, well, if we don't, people have become shameless, and they've even started to identify as shameless people. And there's like a Netflix show, Shameless or something, and it's horrible. But it's like, how do we both take sex away from the profane and back into the sacred, but at the same time give people that understanding that if you're doing it wrong, in all the meanings of that word, then you're that is a shameful thing to be doing.
Well, that's a good question, because you can't. It's not a matter of saying nothing.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, particularly with the pervasive nature of pornography today, particularly on online pornography, we know how it changes the brain too, and that has a big impact on how people become sort of compulsively just constantly stuck in that cycle, and that does have a bearing. Internet pornography completely changed the whole shame question. Once upon a time, to look at pornography, you had to go out of your house.
That's right.
You had to be seen in public buying it or go and view it, right? Yeah. Well, and there was a shame factor that had a natural protection. That's all gone now. You can sit with your phone anywhere and view pornography.
Yeah.
And now, not only that, but it'll come to you now. You used to have to seek it out. You don't have to do that. You just have to log on there and boom, something's promoting itself to you, right?
So we need to go to the internet.
So there's
you
no
first, guys.
Send your complaints to. There's definitely a factor of we don't want to pretend there's no shame, and we actually have to speak the truth about it. And I think we also have to recognise one sort of, I would say, unhealthy tendency in some people, Christians, try to combat this, is they sort of say, we should celebrate all sort of sexual nudity and everything we see as an expression of a culture reaching out for the truth. Well, no, not really. And also,
you get pride parades.
And I've also heard people saying, things like, there's something wrong with you if you can't look upon a naked woman without getting aroused. Well, hold on a minute. If you're a man, no. You are created with that very end in mind. Like you should. It is natural for you to look at the naked form of a woman and go, "Hello, baby." Right? That's what we're built for. And obviously, in the context of marriage, it's a beautiful outworking of that. But to say to someone, you should look at a naked woman and go, "I feel nothing." Well, you've become a robot. I'm sorry, that's not healthy either. So there is a fine, and some of this is a bit grey. Right. Some of it's, you got to walk it, and it's a context thing. It's a case by case. But I think one of the most effective things we can do is obviously we've got to live it, and I think we need to tell the truth and speak the truth. But I think we need to actually produce as many beautiful examples as we can of authentic sexuality.
And I suppose it's about like winning back what's been taken from us, and we see this in the creative circles as well. Sort of like the Catholic Church used to be like the leading in music and in art and in all these things. It's all like. So rather than saying, oh, well, we've had our time, it's now their turn, it's like, no, we need to win back these things. And, I think, living authentic marriages and raising children in an authentic Catholic, I think that's, it's the long-term game, isn't it?
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, so it's about winning back that culture and make. Well, I suppose it's like turning all we do Catholic. Sometimes we can say like, okay, I'm Catholic when I go to church on Sunday, and when I get to work on Monday, I'm like a businessman, or I'm whatever your job is. And I think it's about bringing our God with us.
Well, it's also, I think, about presenting the full beauty of the yes that we say. We say a smaller no to pornography because we say a much bigger yes to truly sacred and life-giving sex. Now, that doesn't mean that every sexual act in a Christian or Catholic marriage is perfect, but far from it. It still has the fumblings and the mistakes and the, it wasn't up there, we're human, right? But there's something about there is still a striving towards what is this beautiful good that it gives us, and that's why we say the big yes and we say a little no in relation to that. So when I talk to groups about why the Catholic Church says that we should not have sex outside of marriage, it's not because the church says, we don't want you to have fun and we want you to be repressed. The church is saying, well, because when you have sex without marriage, you're actually engaging in a bodily lie. Your body's telling a lie. What your body is doing is your body is saying, I give you everything in me. Two bodies saying that to each other, but hearts and minds have not committed to that, have not agreed to that. So your whole person is not going along with what your body is saying you're doing, And so you realise there's a way to talk about these issues which changes the whole dynamic of how we view sexuality.
And I suppose that comes with an understanding of marriage, because as you do your lead up to your marriage, you get told that you're saying yes, I totally, freely, faithfully, and fruitfully love you. Yeah. And Chris West talked about this. It's like if you add contraception to that, you take away all those.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm not giving myself totally. There's not going to be any fruit from this, and I'm going to be.
Well, let's talk about that. This is one of the things Hugh Hefner did. Was he actually put money into abortion advocacy? Yeah. Now here's the thing.
Well, it makes this industry so much.
Well, that's right. Yeah. You can't live out the pornographic fantasy, this self-obsessed, self-gratified world, with babies. Because babies are an inconvenience to that. Childbirth and pregnancy impinge upon this so-called liberation, which is not really a liberation. And what it does is it completely undermines the authentic beauty and heart of human sexuality. For me, I realised this for the first time when I held my eldest daughter, my first girl. She was just born, and I held her in the hospital, and I'm crying like a baby. She's a baby, and she's not crying. And I'm weeping away there, and I look at her, I realise my life has been profoundly transformed as a man in that moment. It will never be the same. And I also realise after a while, this is the pinnacle of human sexuality, the gift that gives back. And I'm holding it in my hands right here and now. This is amazing,
Yeah. And I guess, even in the name Playboy, right? Like that's, if it's a big thing for you, like that's almost like a job description.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be Playboys. Like, we have to graduate from being boys.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is not just an issue for men as well. Like, there might be some women watching this now who
27% of pornography addicts, they say, are now women.
Oh, really?
So, if you're watching this and thinking and hearing all of us talking, it might be very easy, for us to say it, but if you really struggle, I think, with pornography, and it's actually an addiction, there are practical steps you can do. Like what I used to have when I was living in the States is everyone in the household I had installed Covenant Eyes, which is like basically a filter for your computer. There were a few times, it's kind of been a bit embarrassing, when I was hosting a game of rugby at my house and we had to use my computer for watching it, and then all of a sudden, Covenant Eyes, protecting your integrity, and everyone's like, oh, okay, you've got a bit of a problem there, do you? And I was like, well, no, but
because of Covenant
I want to make sure I don't have one. But, so it's definitely, I guess we want to encourage you guys as well, if you're watching this and you're struggling, there is a higher calling. And I don't know about you guys, but I've struggled in the past as well, and so there's always a way forward.
Yeah, and I think it's those preemptive strikes that we can be taking. It's like, stopping yourself and actually thinking, it's like, okay, how am I perceiving these people? What is it that I'm, being a bit more mindful about it all. So like, why am I even doing this? I mean, it's not something that's giving me anything. I'm not giving myself to anything, and so it's like, what's going on here.
Here's I would say 3 or 4 practical things that I think really matter, because one of the things that happens is we know now, thanks to our advances in neuroscience, how your brain will, if you watch enough pornography, your brain actually starts to become what we call hyper-responsive to it. And your brain will rewire itself and want pornography. The good news is, if you change habits and work hard at it, it's not easy, your brain will rewire itself back into it, so it starts working for you again. That takes a number of months, but it can be done. And so some of the key things that will help you to get to that stage are, first of all, you've got to be honest about whatever the habit or the problem you've got is. You've got to be honest. If you're watching 2 hours a day, don't say, it's only a couple of hours a month. Be honest, because you can't ever begin to address it and find a real solution until you're honest about what the level of the problem is. Secondly, you need accountability. So Covenant Eyes is great. There's lots of other filtering softwares. I would say make sure it doesn't just do filtering, make sure it also does accountability, so it reports to someone. And that can be difficult, it takes guts, but if you know someone's gonna, it's a shame factor. Face your screens outwards when you're using them in a house in a high traffic area so people can see what's on the screen. It's a little thing that helps. Have people around you who are going to keep you accountable. So you need accountability, you need community. We're made for community, so you can't battle this on your own. And I would say another thing is looking at triggers. So often we try and fight the battle against porn at the very end of the day, and when we're most vulnerable, sitting in front of a computer, we think, I'll battle this now when the images are in front of me. And too late. You've got to take an honest evaluation of your life and say, well, what are the things that lead up to me looking at porn? Is it work-related stress or study stress, and I know I'm more vulnerable? Is it family issues, and whenever I have an argument with my mum or dad, I'm more vulnerable? Recognise what the trigger is, and then say, what strategies can I put in place to deal with the trigger? And then you're less likely. So if I've had a stressful day, I know I have to stop on the way home from work, and I have to spend half an hour sitting somewhere in solitude just reflecting on my day and debriefing, so I don't go home and get stuck in that temptation, right? And the other thing too is, like we've talked about, is you've got to build an alternate culture. So find life-giving and self-giving things to do. If your leisure time is all about self-gratification, it's going to be real easy to fall back into porn. If your leisure time has a component of, say, watching a film or reading, doing something you enjoy, but also then getting out there and serving others and giving of yourself, investing in a hobby, a sport, it's going to be a lot better. And I'd say one really big thing, just to finish with, is we often think, right, I'm gonna never look at porn again. So it's like climbing Mount Everest, and we say, I'm gonna get to the top of that. That's not how you get to the top of Mount Everest. You need to focus on what we call small steps and first changes. And what happens is a lot of people focus on the summit. And the experts tell us when you're setting a goal, if you obsess over the end goal, you end up with what we call obsessive passion, and it can lead to disillusionment. You're more likely to quit and just give up. If you're climbing Everest, what you do is you say, right, my goal is to achieve the next 100 meters, the next 30 minutes, the next 10 steps. And that's how you break it down and focus on it. So it's like running a marathon. They reckon that if you want to run a marathon, you don't obsess on, I'm going to run a marathon in 6 months' time. What you focus on is, when I get home from work today, I'm going to put on my running gear and tie up my shoes and be ready to go. And what happens is you're far more likely to go out the door for the training run every day if you focus on that goal than if you focus on running the marathon.
I see.
So the lesson there is, don't rush to the climax.
You could say that. That's another way of putting it. Send your complaints to.
Don't peak too soon.
Send your
that's probably all we had time for.
But yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast with us. It's been brilliant having you.
That's my pleasure.
We could talk about this all day, but
you really could, couldn't we?
Yeah.
We are going to have a great time this weekend with the Theology of the Body conference here at Catholic Discipleship College, co-hosted by the Auckland Catholic Tertiary Chaplaincy.
If you're interested, look at CDC's website. There's still places, I believe. So check it out. It's going to be on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Brendan's going to be talking.
Pornography and human dignity.
I'm going to be
emceeing.
I'm cooking. We made awesome batches of
I'm even baking
Hannah?
cookies at Newman Hall. Like, there's no tomorrow. It's crazy.
There is no tomorrow.
Tea?
Yeah.
All right, kia ora, thanks for joining us.
Tea. God bless.
See you guys.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Make sure that you check us out on our YouTube channel, Auckland Catholic Tertiary Chaplaincy.
You can also find us on Facebook, Facebook.com/The Chaplains.
And our Instagram account, which is Auckland Catholic Chaplaincy.
We're also now on iTunes. Just search up Gregorian Chat.
Boom.
That's right.
Thanks for listening.
God bless.